Everybody, Dr. Rob Silverman here, Proven Health Alternatives. I'm here with superstar, advocate, athlete, personal trainer, fitness guru, strength and conditioning coach, and sports enthusiast nutritionist, Mr. Brian Keane. Before you go any further, tell everybody where you just scaled.
Dr. Rob, I just scaled the highest free-ranging mountain in the world, Kilimanjaro in Tanzania in Africa.
Dude, I'm afraid of heights. I can't fathom doing that. I can't fathom the height, but I don't, the physical fitness needs the training, which I would love to delve into because I think that there are a lot of enthusiasts. I think everybody wants to do something extreme, but your history is so interesting. Over the past 7 years, you were working as a full-time primary school teacher, and now you're one of Ireland's leading thought leaders on all things health, fitness, and nutrition. You have the #1 podcast in the UK, you told me.
In Ireland, yeah. Number one health podcast in Ireland. Yeah. We've got a massive podcast, one of the top 0.5% podcasts globally ranked in the world.
Outstanding. You're doing a great job. So let me set the table for our conversation. You don't believe that it's calories in, calories out. Thank God you're a nutrition coach, but you're not low carb, you're not vegan, you're not paleo. Your philosophy is all about finding a nutritional plan that works for the individual, personalizing for them, showing that the mindset around nutrition is more important than the actual diet you are on. There's the football, American football. Run with it, my friend.
I think it sings perfectly from your hymn sheet on the podcast, because what I love about what you do, and I think we come from very similar schools of thought, is educating people on all the different nutritional principles and philosophies and potential diets they could follow, and then trying to fit square pegs into square holes. And what I generally recommend to people is nutrition is largely about mindset. And people obsess over calories, they obsess over macros, they obsess over different food groups and types, when in reality, you're looking to find, okay, what's sustainable for me? What am I looking to achieve in terms of my goal? Am I looking to improve my health? Am I looking to improve my fitness or my body composition? Am I looking to build muscle, lose body fat, lose weight? Am I looking to just have more vitality and energy through the day? And once you've asked that question, you can then start to see, okay, what's the nutritional protocol I need to follow? How do I need to approach this? And in reality, most people fall off, and I hate the word diet. And as somebody that's a nutritionist, I hate the word, you've said it in terms of just feeling choked off. People limit themselves into a diet is something that you tend to come on and off, as opposed to taking a nutritional strategy. Okay, what do I need to adjust based on my current goals? So for example, it's the first week of December for me. My goal at the minute is training for a High Rocks Pro, which is like a fitness race that I'm doing in Italy in February. So I'm eating a lot higher carbohydrate right now to fuel those workouts, and I'm eating higher protein to recover from those workouts. But over Christmas, I'll be with my family, I'll be with my other half, I'll be with my daughter, I'll be with my friends. So I'll be going out for a couple of drinks, and I'll be having some mince pies, and I'll be eating chocolate and cake, all the good stuff. And then as soon as Christmas is over, I'll be like, okay, I'm back on the training for January for my race and fitness in February. So everyone can make these adjustments, as opposed to, I'm going to eat this way because I want to lose weight now, or I'm going to eat this way because I read it in a book or saw it on Instagram, and this is the way I'm supposed to do it. And I try and educate people very similar to you. So I'm really excited to chat about coming on my podcast after, where I'm going to be unpacking all your stuff, Dr. Rob, because it's educating people on nutrition, and then making them see, look, there's these different protocols you can follow. If you want to try them, see how they fit for you. And if they work, keep going. You generally want to make what I call nutrition automatic, where it's just something that you do. It's not something that you're obsessed by or something that consumes every waking moment for you. It just becomes the way that you eat. It becomes automatic, and it's in alignment with whatever goal you have at that moment.
Your enthusiasm, without question, is contagious. I feel it now. I'm getting the goosebumps. I'm ready to go. I'm a type A. Let's do it. Now, what's interesting is you actually cheat on your diet, if you will, or you cheat on your lifestyle, food eating habits. That's great. Now, some people say, all right, it's not calories in and calories out, because I agree, because I believe it's not about calories, it's about chemicals, it's not about calories, it's about nutrients. It's really about what the food brings to you in nutrient-dense value. However, you're an extreme athlete. There are times that you have to take a lot of calories for energy. So if I'm going to decide to see a psychotherapist, get over my fear of heights, get into shape, and I'm going to scale with you. What macronutrient are you going to tell me I need to pack in my knapsack, my backpack, whatever you want to call it?
Oh, that's a really interesting question and very nuanced. I'll give two answers because what I recommend and what I do aren't always the same thing. So I have an audience that generally aren't as extreme as me, meaning that what they set out, and I do very extreme goals. I've ran 6 back-to-back marathons through the Sahara Desert. I've ran 230 kilometers through the Arctic in the north of Sweden.
Mhm.
I have set and done quite extreme goals. My audience online tend to not be as extreme as me. They're into health, they're into wellness, but they don't be as
Right.
extreme. So what I do when I'm training for something like that is I go heavily into fat adaptation. I go into mild ketosis, in and out of ketosis, because on these races and challenges, particularly the Arctic and the Sahara, they're self-sufficient, meaning that I'm running for multiple days, but I'm only running on what I can carry on my back, meaning that I'm not getting any other food from any external source.
Mhm.
So for me, I have to be quite metabolically flexible and be able to use dietary fat, body fat as fuel because I can't eat every 40 minutes with a carb source. I can't carry 30 kilos or 40 kilos of carbohydrate on my back where I would have to keep topping up. So I tend to go into ketosis. I tend to be more fat adapted for those styles of races. What I recommend in those styles of challenges, what I recommend for people is look at the nutrient density that your body isn't getting at the minute. And something that's so misunderstood and isn't talked about enough online, and this is again what I love about your content. I've been following the Instagram page for quite a while,
Thank
is
you.
the nutrient density in the food. Like where people are either obsessed with the calorie number, but they're not looking at the nutrient density. And a weird answer here when it comes to the macronutrients is a lot of people tend to either overeat protein or undereat protein. It's a very peculiar uh, area of fitness that we're in right now because everything is quote unquote fortified with protein. Your cereals, your protein bars, everything's got protein added. And I'm using inverted commas. So there's protein added to all these foods. So people are either massively overeating on protein. And it's normally quite easy to see if you're eating low quality protein, you're going to have constipation, you're going to have digestive issues, you're going to feel that quite quickly. Or people are under eating, and the symptoms of that are obviously nuanced, but the very obvious ones are, not feeling full between meals, not recovering from workouts, etc. They're going to be the main ones if you're living in an active lifestyle.
Mhm.
And what I tend to see is people eating way too little fiber. And I have a lot of American clients as well and North American clients, and their fiber intake is really low. So although people will say, okay, what's the macronutrient? I'm like, well, actually, what's your fiber like? How much vegetables are you eating? How much roughage are you eating? And they'll say, oh, well, actually, actually I haven't gone to the toilet and had a bowel movement in 2 or 3 days. And they'll say that like it's normal. And you're
Yeah.
explaining to people that normal is relative and you want to make sure that your new normal is in alignment with what your body should be doing and how it should be reacting and how it should be processing, digesting food in terms of your energy levels. So what I'd say is I don't necessarily think there's one macronutrient more important than the other. I think understanding it is key. Protein, you need to get essential amino acids from the protein that you eat. Essential meaning your body can't make them. You have to get it from food or supplements. There's essential fatty acids from fats. So you have to eat them or get them from supplements. There's no essential carbohydrate, but carbohydrate has got energy giving potential, particularly complex carbohydrates. There's some nutrients in there. There's potentially fiber in there. So it's going to keep you feeling fuller for longer between meals. So understanding that is more important than saying one is more specifically important than the other.
Outstanding. So to summarize what you said, it sounds like for you, and everything's individualized, you're a little bit more of a keto diet because of your extreme energy needs. Fat is a much more calorically dense macronutrient than carbohydrates. There's also essential nutrients, essential fatty acids in it. And you use the term metabolically flexible. That's great because that means you have the ability to utilize fat, maybe cheat with some quick carbs if need be, and be able to go back right into ketosis as soon as you eat fat. So that's very important. That's a high level training. So that adaptability is something that you probably, if you were to work with me, you would try to get my body to that adaptability. So you could have ketogenic therapy, if you will. So that's outstanding. And the ketone bodies are great because they're not only energy sources, they're also signaling sources. So positive signaling is going to give a great outcome. You talked about nutrient density. We have had Dr. Sarah Ballantyne on the podcast just hit on her Nutrivore, and she talks all about that. I don't even count calories, Dr. Rob. It's all about nutrients. Outstanding. And the protein's interesting because, again, you could be, in theory, a catabolic state because you're running, I mean, you're out of your mind, my friend. I mean, like I said, wow, it's great. And you're right about Americans and fiber. I've talked about this a lot. The average American's 8 to 15 grams. And we live in our bubble, our funnel, and we're like, yeah, it's fine. I haven't taken a poop, like you said, in 3 days. That isn't normal. That may be normal for them. That may be normal for many Americans, or the complete opposite. They may be pooping 3 or 4 times a day. But the regularity is, approximately once a day. And of course, if they're not pooping, that poses a problem. And if they're pooping too much, they're slowing down. And lastly, it begs the question, hydration for you. What kind of hydration do you partake in?
I try and keep hydration as a recommendation very simple for people to follow because individual requirements, depending on your size, where you live, how much you sweat, how much heat you're exposed to is going to determine your hydration in terms of just water in general or anything you need in terms of your minerals that you're going to be sweating out. But letting your pee be your gauge is what I tell people. Normal rule of thumb is if your pee is clear, you're going to be adequately hydrated. If your pee is slightly discolored, and assuming you're not taking on B vitamins, etc., you're becoming mildly dehydrated. If your pee smells and it's dark yellow, you're dehydrated and you need to address that quite quickly. So instead of kind of overcomplicating it, I get people, like, the language I use is let your pee be your guide, because that gives you kind of feedback instantly. And even if you don't have a degree in nutrition, you don't have a background in nutrition, most people are able to absorb that information and check in with it regularly on a daily basis.
So let's dig into some interesting questions. How does somebody find the best diet to fit their lifestyle and schedule? Because that's the biggest complaint I get. This sounds great, but it takes too long. It's too hard. It doesn't taste good. That works for you because you're genetically gifted, Brian. I'm not. Sort of a lot of excuses, concerns. So how do you tackle that?
Another great question. There's two approaches, and something one of my business mentors told me years ago was, at all stages of life, we'll have more time or more money. And depending on if you're in a stage of life where you don't have a lot of disposable income, but you have a lot of time, you have what I call the trial and error approach. You're going to try on a lot of different things to see what works best for you. If you're fortunate enough to be in the reverse, where you have disposable income and you either do have time or don't have time, you hire an expert to go through that with you. And the experts are going to cut your learning curve. And when you're speaking to somebody who knows your lifestyle, your schedule, your goals, what's worked in the past, what you like, what you dislike, they're going to design all that for you. And that cuts straight through the noise to the signal on what you need to be doing in terms of your nutrition. And as I mentioned, on the other side, if you can't do that, you can read the books, you can listen to the podcasts like this, you can scroll and find stuff that are reputable in terms of the information you need, because there's a lot of noise online, and it can be very confusing for people when they're trying to find the information themselves. I always tell people, when you're starting a nutritional journey, first pick 3 or 4 people. Maybe it's me and you, Dr. Rob, maybe it's me, you, and somebody else, or maybe it's not us. Other people will listen and go, okay, actually I'm going to connect with those people over there, and that's fine too. They might not like the cut of my jib, the way I speak, and that's okay as well. But you want to find 3 or 4 people who are reputable, who have evidence to support what they're saying, and it's not just anecdotal, i.e. they're not a 25-year-old Instagram model who's in great shape with amazing genetics who's telling you one thing, but have actually, it's just because they happen to be that way, or there's survivorship bias, that they live a certain way, it works for them, etc. You want people who can reputably back up what they're saying, and then you filter everything through their lens. So if it's me and you, Dr. Rob, for example, they're listening to all of your podcasts. They're going back and listening to all of them. And they're just dissecting and filtering okay, that's applicable to me. I don't think that would work for me. Oh, I like the sound of that keto thing. I'm going to do that. I like the sound of that supplement. I might try that. And you're trialing and erroring and experimenting with that through a reputable source that you've connected with already. So one of those two approaches tends to work for the majority of people.
So you like that intuitive approach into trial and error, seeing what works for the individualization. It's interesting. Now, you have an online fitness program and you have over thousands of graduates every single year. In your programs, you actually help people reach their weight loss, fitness, and body composition goal, muscle mass goals, by giving sustainable fitness program, along with, interesting to me, changing their entire mindset when it comes to food. So that said, there's this relationship between us and food. I never had that. Food was just a means to an end. Try and get in shape if I was a little hungry. But you've really tapped into the relationship of food. So why don't you take the bouquet now and roll it?
I one love that analogy and metaphor, but I kind of fell into this area, Dr. Rob, not by accident, but by not by pre-design either, because I started out in 2012. I qualified as a nutritionist and a personal trainer, and have been working with people for nearly 14 years at this point, if the math is right, 12 to 14 years between getting certifications, working with people. I was doing some of that as a teacher as well. But for the last 10 years, I've been doing this full time. And a lot of the clients I was working with in what was one-to-one nutrition and personal training at the time, which is now online, a lot of people, my audience and clients, knew what they should be doing, but they couldn't follow it. And I found that really interesting because my personality is similar to you, that type A. I'm like, well, tell me what I need to do and I'll do it.
Right.
And I'm able to follow things. I'm like, give me the blueprint. I might struggle with the blueprint, but I can execute. But the
Right.
clients I was working with, they knew what they should be doing, but they weren't able to stick to it. They knew they should be working out, 3, 4, 5 times a week in terms of moving their body more. They knew they should be choosing more nutrient dense foods, increasing their fiber, hitting their protein targets, but they were struggling with it and they couldn't stick to it. And that led me down into food psychology, behavioral science, and the points where people were falling off, self-sabotage, where they would eat well for a while, Monday to Friday, and then fall off at the weekends. I found that fascinating when that would happen with client after client after client, when they'd come to me first and they would be giving me their history. And they'd be like, look, I'm really good Monday to Friday, but just something happens at the weekend. And this was starting to repeat over and over again. And the reason I was able to design a program that helped to scale that was because you saw that there was these common problems and trends, common stories that people had, and you were able to unpack them. Now, I should also say my scale program, group program, is body composition, fat loss, weight loss, building muscle, etc. That's who that program is for. Anyone with an underlying issue, any history of, a heavily binge strict for cycles or anything on those lines, they're the people I work with one-to-one, because it tends to be a lot more work. You need to nearly interview those people. You need to know exactly what's going on in their life specifically. You need to be able to identify the triggers and activations that are going on in their life that are happening on an automatic that they don't see themselves, i.e., they binge every time they have a fight with their partner, or they binge every time they come home on a Thursday because it's the most stressful day at work. Things that are normal, quote unquote, for them, but they don't see it. They're blind spots because we don't see what we're doing every day. So
Right.
you need to be able to unpack that. So when it came to the food side and the food behavior side, it was nearly a re-education. A lot of people, and this is very common in Ireland, the UK, a little bit in North America, but they're different companies because I work with clients from all over the world, is different slimming clubs, different quick fix diets,
Right.
and they actually miseducate people. And the problem then isn't necessarily the execution, it's that people have miseducation coming in to work with a nutritionist. You know this from your background as well.
Mhm.
They're telling you things and you're like, where did you hear that? It's just this mad random science, quote unquote science, that they think is actually legitimate, that they heard, whether it's from Weight Watchers or a Slimming Club, where they're counting points instead of understanding the nutrient density behind foods. And that's like foreign. It's like you're speaking Japanese to them when you're explaining nutrient density in food. They're like, well, how many points is in that? I'm like, no, I'm telling you the nutrient density. I'm like, this is what your body needs: vitamins, minerals, micro, macronutrients. And it's like you're speaking Japanese. That's miseducation. So that's filling in the gaps on what people need. So sometimes it's a case of they've actually been miseducated around nutrition, and I need to address that and work through that. In other cases, it's the behavior. It's identifying their triggers, their activations, that what is their emotional response to food, because food is very emotional for people, meaning that you know, I always get my clients to do a check-in if they have a history of emotional eating, where, you know, the neck up, neck down check-in, where you normally get emotional eating is normally very quick. It's normally in your head and it's above your neck, and there's normally been something that's activated or triggered it in a short period of time, i.e., you know, you came in, you had a fight with your boss or a fight with your loved one, and now you're dying for some ice cream and cake. I'm the first one to be like, look, if you want ice cream and cake, go and have ice cream and cake. It's your birthday, have a slice of cake. You know, it's Saturday night, you want to go out with your kids and have an ice cream. If that's what you want to do and it fills up your soul, by all means, go and have it. I don't tell people there's foods off limit, because one of the things, I've forgotten the scientific psychological term now, it's fallen out of my head.
Mm.
But basically, if I say, Dr. Rob, don't think of a pink elephant, your brain automatically goes to think about a pink elephant. You tell somebody, don't have this food, it's normally the one that they want, especially if it's one of their quote unquote soul foods, i.e., they love popcorn, or they love cake, or they love chocolates, or whatever it is. So I always tell people, look, it's understanding why you want that food. And if you want to have it, have it. But the danger being in the dose. There's a big difference between having a bar of chocolate and having 10, because in terms of like the amount of sugar, the process element, the disruption to your gut microbiome, the mood disruption that can come with that, the drop off in sleep quality if it's late at nighttime when a lot of people tend to binge. Education is key around this, and then identifying what the underlying root causes are. If it's, you know, an emotional response, you're putting stress management techniques in place. You're bringing awareness to every time you feel this emotion: sadness, loneliness, or happiness, joy. Sometimes people have, that's something a lot of people don't know, that sometimes the happiness and quote unquote positive emotions are also triggers for food sometimes, because people think, oh, I'm going to just make this even better now. I'm going to go have a few drinks. I'm going to have some cake because I got that promotion. So it's not always a negative thing. It is in a lot of cases, but it's not always. Understanding that is important. And then wherever someone falls into the spectrum, it's just bringing awareness to it and unpacking it from there.
It's funny that you mentioned the points, because that reminds me of our old Weight Watchers, which is calories in and calories out. So you can have a Snickers bar as long as it's the same calories as a turkey salad, let's say. Makes no sense. And speaking to the chocolate, well, you know what? I was fading a little bit. I didn't eat enough this morning, and I'm scheduled for an 11:30 meal. It's 11:30 right now, and I didn't want to fade. So I had a piece of organic dark chocolate, 80%, etc. And man, it tasted good. And I have no Jewish guilt over it. Go forward. But it's a time, we're sort of at the right time in a podcast where we do something very American, if you will. Get ready. It's called rapid fire. So I'm asking a question. You're going to give me a quick answer. Are you ready?
Go.
Your favorite exercise for muscle mass?
Squat. Barbell squat.
Your favorite exercise for cardiovascular health?
Sprints on a rowing machine.
Sprints on a rowing machine. You're trying to kick my rear end, man. Your favorite flexibility exercise?
Downward dog yoga pose.
Gluten, yes or no?
For me,
okay,
no.
Let me preface that. I will say gluten, American gluten, not UK Irish gluten. Did I give you a twist?
No, with an asterisk.
Okay.
I think the danger is really in the dose. And again, it's education, not abstinence. I think when people know the downside of it and the negative impact on their gut microbiome, people tend to filter it out versus just saying cut gluten because it's quote unquote bad for you. I think when people understand how it doesn't help you with health or fitness goals, it's easier to remove it.
Dairy and fermented dairy. 2 questions in one.
Big fan of fermented dairy. Less of a fan of dairy, but then we have higher quality dairy here in Ireland and the UK as well because of just EU regulations, etc. So it's a little bit different in the US.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Green tea.
Oh, green tea.
Outstanding. You know, it's really weird. I just had a thought of Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he did a reel yesterday. And I'm a big Arnold guy. I think he does a great job. And he said yesterday the reason he loved and thrived at bodybuilding contests was that there was a deadline. So he knew, okay, it's summertime. I have a show in October. I got to get into shape. I got to tune in my diet. I got to increase my intensity, increase my sets. So he was goal oriented. And I think most people fail in health because they don't have a goal. So how do you set some clear goals for people in weight loss, fat, and muscle enhancement?
Personally, I love Arnold as well. He's one of my favorite people. I love everything Arnold does. His first book, Total Recall, is when I go back and reread when I need a bit of motivation and just a little bit of a kick up the bum to kind of get more done that year. What I'd say with goals, I like to approach it twofold. And the analogy I've used in books is climbing a ladder and making sure it's up against the right wall when it comes to goals. And what I mean by that is you set the big goal, and I don't think, with the exception of certain goals, most are realistic, particularly health and body composition based. Like, for example, I'm 5'8", 37. I'm not going to be playing in the NBA anytime soon. I'm built like a little hobbit, just not going to happen. Certain goals just unachievable. But running a marathon at a faster time, bodybuilding shows, writing books, getting leaner, getting healthier, increasing energy vitality. These are all very achievable goals for myself personally, and for a lot of people that are listening. They'll have their own relative versions of that. So set the big goal first and foremost and adjust the time frame if you need to. But check in regularly with the process, because goals are process and outcome driven, meaning that you can have a weight loss goal of 20 pounds and you can be all outcome driven, which means that you don't care about the process. You go follow Weight Watchers, a slimming club, or you extremely crash diet. You eat broccoli or you eat nothing but 2 Snickers bars a day, and you're going to lose weight. You're going to feel absolutely horrible. You're going to do some serious negative impact to your body, your gut microbiome, your digestive system, potentially your metabolism if you do it for an extended period of time. But you'll probably lose weight. You're going to be so calorically restricted. You're probably going to lose a little bit of weight. You'll plateau because you won't be able to sustain that. You'll decrease in muscle mass and you'll drop your metabolic rate as a reduction because of the reduction in lean muscle tissue. But you will probably lose the 20 pounds if you've got 20 pounds to lose. That's outcome driven. Process driven is I want to lose 20 pounds, but I'm going to look at the nutrient density of my food. I'm going to look at my sleep quality. I'm going to look at my movement through the day. I'm going to look at my exercise choices. You mentioned there, asked about favorite weight building exercise or resistance training, barbell squat. Something that people don't always understand that I try and bring awareness to is when you lift weights and strength train, not only will it improve your longevity, and it's been shown considerably to improve the quality of life and bone density, etc., it also increases your metabolic rate, meaning that you burn more calories while you're resting. And lifting weights, strength training, resistance training, and increasing your metabolism through that process is the fat burning equivalent of making money while you sleep. Your body is burning more calories while you're resting. And as a result of that increased metabolic rate, you tend to burn more calories, burn more body fat, etc. Obviously, there's all other things going on in terms of hormonal sleep, etc. But that is one of the processes in which it works in terms of the signals to the body. And that's a really important thing to build in. So with goals, you're looking at your process and you're looking at the outcome. You're keeping the end in mind in terms of the goal, losing 20 pounds, getting faster, running a marathon, improving health and longevity and whatever biomarkers you're tracking as a result of that. And then you're looking at the process, keeping the ladder analogy. What's the top of the ladder? What's the goal? And how are you climbing the ladder and checking in with the process? Am I enjoying this process? Can I stick with this? We're recording this. I'm not sure when it's going out, but we're recording it early December. And January is a big window of time when people make too many changes too soon, too many extreme changes too soon, particularly with nutrition and training. And the advice I offer, if you can't follow the diet the first week of June, don't start at the first week of January. And so you're looking to set yourself up for something that's sustainable. And I think when you think of goals, that's a useful approach to take.
I love it. Attainable goals, something that you want. And I love that. June 1st. If you can't do June 1st, don't do it January 1st. Because I'm sure you probably heard, hey, I'm going to start with my New Year's resolution. And by the end of February, they're back off the snide, if you will. And really good point about muscle mass, because muscle mass is literally an endocrine organ. It
Mm.
disposes very efficiently of sugar, but it's also extremely metabolic. So a real good goal, and you mentioned it for longevity, is to have quality muscle mass. So one of the things that's interesting about all that, and I think you're really hedging on it. So I look at very successful people like yourself and Michael Jordan. I'm a basketball guy. Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, these type of people, LeBron, Tom Brady, presidents, prime ministers. They have something, what we would refer to as mental toughness. Nothing stops them. There's no such thing as naysayers. Pay no attention. Arnold Schwarzenegger said that in one of his five things in life, to avoid the naysayers. How did you, and how can you share building a mindset of mental toughness?
I love that. One of my favorite topics to speak on because it's a very one that's close to my heart because I had the misconception that mental toughness was something that you either had or didn't have
Mm.
and didn't know it was something you could build. And because I wasn't naturally and amn't naturally mentally resilient or mentally tough, I was quite resigned for large portions of my life. This is just something that I'm not going to be able to do or have. When I started to read more and apply some of the lessons I'm going to speak about, and I saw my mental toughness growing and my mental resilience growing, I felt a kind of a call, your mess becoming your message, to share with other people that this is something you can build. And I historically wouldn't have had a lot of self confidence. And what I didn't know was the tie between mental toughness and self confidence. I didn't actually do the connection between those two
Interesting.
things. And that was a gap for me. And when I started to build confidence, and confidence isn't really overly complicated, actually executing on it can be tricky, but the process is actually very easy. The same as to get stronger, lift weights that your body's failing at a given rep range. To that's it's very straightforward, but execution is difficult. Confidence is the same. You build confidence by repeatedly keeping promises to yourself. And when I started to keep small promises to myself and build on that every day, I was able to build up a lot of confidence over time. And the analogy that I always pictured, it's what I spoke about in my book, Rewire Your Mindset, was it's like legs on a table. If you picture a table, every time you keep a small promise to yourself, you set an alarm for 6 a.m. and you get up. You said you were going to go to the gym and you went. You said you were going to have, the dark chocolate at 11:30 instead of the Hershey's bar. You said this was what I said I was going to do, and this is what I did. You keep that
Right.
promise. You add a small leg to that table, and then over time that table becomes sturdier, and then you'll set a big goal for yourself. It might be to squat a certain weight in the gym or run a couch to 5K or run a half marathon or a full marathon, or maybe to bench press your body weight, whatever it is that you set. It'll be a big leg on that table. And then over the space of weeks, months, years, you've got this really strong self confidence table. And the reason I like the analogy and the metaphor for the table is when you picture a table that has only one or two legs, i.e., the start of a new journey, it's very easy to knock it. And that's when the naysayers come in. That's when the self doubt comes in. And that's
Right.
where you need to be very mindful of where you spend time, energy, and focus and attention in terms of who you're around. And we all have naysayers, family members, friends, people that will tell you that you can't do something. And what I didn't know a decade ago that I know now is you have to protect that space in the beginning while you're building those legs on the table,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
that's when you're most likely to fall off and knock it over. After a certain period of time, I can get the naysayers now. I had people tell me, they're like, oh, Kilimanjaro, altitude's pretty high. I don't know if you're going to be able to do that. And I'm looking at them going, I'm bringing 10 people up. I was like, I'm bringing them to the top. They're going to be borrowing my confidence, my mental toughness. But I had people who didn't know me tell me, oh, I don't know, will you be able to do that? But my self confidence, and it's not I don't want to use it as a place from ego. This is kind of very authentic for me that rolls straight off my back because I know I'm going to summit Kilimanjaro. Not only do I know I'm going to get to the top, I know I'm going to bring the 10 people who went with me and I'm going to get them to the top as well. That comes off the back of years of having to do the work to build that mental toughness, build the resilience, build the self confidence. It doesn't happen overnight, and it didn't for me. but it can happen for anybody, because you told me that a decade ago, 15 years ago, I wouldn't have believed it was possible for me. It's just I was limited by the story and the narrative, and my language was that's something other people do. Setting up a business is something other people do. Running a marathon is something other people do. Doing bodybuilding shows is something other people do. Climbing Kilimanjaro is something other people do. And I would always pass the buck to them or pass it off. When I started to understand that that was my self-limiting belief, and I had awareness that this was a Brian Keane problem, not or Brian Keane's self-confidence, self-belief, not backing myself problem, I was able to make positive changes around it.
Outstanding. It's funny. We have not met each other before other than emails. I mean, I've seen your work, stuff like that. And this is the first time we've actually been proverbially face to face. I too use a metaphor of a table and legs. And one of the legs is there's a financial stability. There's a spiritual stability. There's a health and wellness stability. But the fourth leg is mindset and mind-body connection. And it's just funny that we are left and right hand together without question. And there's a lot of commonalities. Interesting, though, I should share this with everybody. In the summer of 2017, you published your first book. It was called The Fitness Mindset. It spent 16 weeks on the Amazon bestseller list. In December of 2019, you published your second book, Rewire Your Mindset. So without question, this is something that's very top of knowledge, conscious for you. I want to ask you something easy, because people have been listening, and I want them to have a gimme, if you will. How would you recommend someone look at their fitness in a holistic way?
One of the mistakes people make, and sometimes coming at things from the pitfall or the mistake can be the best way to provide service in the answer, is people look at fitness in isolation. They look at diet, and they look at training, and they look at sleep, but they separate all of these things and don't realize how they actually all connect to one another. And what I've been trying to do over the last decade, it's actually very similar to you, Dr. Rob, is bring the awareness that all these things are interconnected. Not only that, your emotional health, your spiritual health, your financial health, your fulfillment levels, these are all connected with your stress, with your fitness, with your cardiovascular health, with your mental health. All these things are connected. And they're all integrated, connected, and people look at them like they're silos and that they're independent of one another. And what I generally recommend is look at the true force multiplier. And in the army or in the Marines, they talk about true force multipliers. What's the one thing that impacts everything else in a positive way? And you're looking at the area of your life that if you fixed or made that better now, it would have a positive domino effect on other things. And in a lot of cases, it tends to be either nutrition or sleep. Not always, but from my availability bias as a fitness coach, it's normally sleep or nutrition. So somebody has terrible sleep, and as a result, they're making poor food choices, which is leading to low energy levels, which means that they can't actually work out or train, which means that they're, not present when they're at home. They're not productive as they could be when they're at work. And because of that, they feel anxious or they feel depressed, and it's having this negative compound effect in the wrong direction. Whereas if you fix the sleep, or address it, improve the quality, all these things start to compound positively. Nutrition is exactly the same. If you are, it's a cliche, but you put garbage in, you get garbage out. You're eating garbage food, your energy level is going to be garbage. And then energy is your currency of the world. It's what you're doing. People think it's time that's the problem. It's not time management we have an issue with, it's energy management. So we need to make sure that we're increasing that energy so that we're able to do all these things that we want. So ask the question when it comes to holistic, what's the one thing that's a big rock or boulder for me now that if I got right, it would have a positive impact on all the other things? And then you just work through that list until you optimize everything and you get to the point where you want to be.
Energy is the currency of the world. That will be a quote on my social media, and you get full credit for that. That's fabulous. That's illuminating, if you will. It's imbuing me with enthusiasm to continue. And that is really a critical element to what you were talking about in the mindset. Now, I always like to end. I got a buddy, he watches all my podcasts, grew up with him. He's achieved academic heights that are just, he's an erudite. But he says to me, Rob, do me a favor. At the end of the day, give me 3 things to do differently that I can implement on Monday morning that's not going to break my back. So, Brian, help my friend out in Switzerland. What do you got for him?
I'll keep it on brand. Get into the gym and squat, do some hit sprints on the rower at the end, and try and get a good quality night's sleep.
What's your favorite food for health?
Broccoli.
Brian, what's your favorite food for strength training?
Any complete protein source. Fish is my personal preference, though.
And lastly, what's your favorite food for cardiovascular training?
Almonds or almond butter. I tend to do very well on high fat when cardiovascular training is the priority.
Outstanding. 3 simple hacks, and most people don't do them. This has been fabulous. I appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man. The host of the #1 podcast in Ireland, Brian Keane, the man who scales mountains. His nickname should be Batman. It's been great. Thanks for sharing. It's been wonderful. Appreciate it. Hope to see you again soon.
100%, Dr. Rob. The pleasure is all mine, and I'm excited to have you on my show as well.
I'm looking forward to it.